Hi there guys, welcome back to Dad Plays Stuff, and today we have another long-awaited episode of the Comprehensive Guide series. Today we're going to tackle the new immortal that just came out today, Zeruchroar. Now, Zeruchroar is an intense fight. Unlike most of his brethren, he's relatively small and very manoeuvrable. He's basically just a giant arsenal with some insane firepower. Now the fight starts off with Roar in his first phase. He's heavily armoured, and he uses the majority of his moveset during this phase, and that he's pretty much going to use throughout the fight. Now, he has two weak points for this section, one on his head, which can only be seen from behind, and one protruding from his butt like a tail. This one, however, is armoured, so you'll need to break that first so you can get to that core. Now, for phase 1 he has several powerful moves. The first is a spin attack, where he launches flames from his arms and flails around. If this hits you, it will deal a fair amount of damage along with burn status. The next attack, he will telegraph his arms and take a massive swipe, or free, towards the targeted player, and again this will cause a fair amount of damage, and this time acid status, which in turn will deal a fair amount of damage on top of that. Up next, we have his Roar attack, which causes a shockwave. The closer you are to the boss at the time, the greater the damage. This also knocks you back and causes stun status, and sometimes it can be like a channeled ability, so he can damage you multiple times. On occasion, he will squat down and begin focusing his energy. This is so that he can launch some missiles from his back, but they're not just any missiles, they're laser missiles. And as a result of being lasers, they can't be shot down. If he gets some distance between you, sometimes he will do a leap attack where he will drop down on the targeted arsenal and, of course, deal some damage. And the last ability of this phase is that he will periodically cause a moonfall event where flaming rocks fall from the sky, and these can either be dodged or destroyed. Now, phase 2 is heralded by Zeruchroar taking a stance and letting out a massive roar, which does the same thing as the mentioned attack of phase 1. After a few seconds of casting this, he will rip off the two arm-mounted pieces of armour and throw them to the floor. This increases his speed, but causes him to take a significant increase in damage, and reveals two further weak points that appear on occasion, each located on the side of his arms. Now, phase 2 plays out very similar to phase 1. He uses all the same moves, but moves at a greater speed to avoid your attacks. However, he gains a new ability for this phase. Periodically, he will create a Femto orb around his body. He then expands this orb to encompass the entire map. When an arsenal is in this barrier, your Femto energy will basically drain really quickly. You can stop this by finding a Femto hotspot in one of the nearby little bunkers around the map. This move can also be stopped by dealing enough damage while he's casting it. However, if he succeeds to drain enough Femto, he begins to glow a brighter purple on his decals than he would normally, and he begins spamming the laser rocket fire whilst moving. While it's not incredibly damaging, when used in tandem with all his other abilities, it can whittle down your health in small little dribs and drabs. Now, he can also use the energy cannon that Gunfort, Dreadnought, Eclipse and Dominator use, so be careful not to get blasted by it. Now, there are some familiar mechanics at foot during this battle with Roar. He's quite fond of destroying gunforts. As a result, there are many gunfort cannons littered around the map. These can be used to deal damage to him, best used when he's either stuck in a roar, the spinning fire attack, or his phase 2 Femto orb. The next is when he discards his armour. These pieces can be picked up and lobbed back at him, and it does a decent amount of damage, but be careful when you throw. It moves pretty damn slow, and the range of your throw can be quite deceptive at times. Now, when fighting this boss, there are plenty of strategies that work, the easiest being sniper rifles. Most of his attacks are only effective close up, so being able to attack from a distance makes him a tad trivial. Stun guns also add a degree of utility in this fight. When stunned, it allows all players to just open fire on him and deal a massive amount of burst damage. And if anyone has acid weapons, I've found that they are quite effective, especially when used with the stun. As usual, my personal preference is to use my twin machine gun arms. This time, however, I'm shouldering a devotion so that I can shrug off any of the attacks I take to the face during the fight. Any mid to close range strategy would heavily benefit from using this, due to the fact that his attacks at times are fast and dodging isn't always as easy as it would seem. Now, there are two versions of this fight. Each drops one of the armour sets, and the first one drops the two weapons. The second one drops the second armour set and the auxiliary part blueprint. So, the first set of blueprints is the Zurich Rock Set. It's modelled after his Phase 1 form, and it's the bulkier of the two sets with increased resistances. Next up is the Zurich Waste Set, a much faster and more manoeuvrable set representing Phase 2 of the boss fight. Both armour sets are pretty awesome looking, and it'll take a lot more testing to determine how useful they are in the long run. Next we have the Lowenflug, a shoulder-mounted laser rocket launcher. Basically it does exactly what the boss does. Again, decent damage, but it does have the Femto cost and a slow rate of fire in comparison to the Garuda. The two little laser cannons you see on screen are the Leonkriegers, a handheld laser cannon more akin to a machine gun than its siblings. It has a high fire rate and pretty decent damage. Its main downside is its low ammo count, and it costs Femto to use, which in turn can run down your Femto quite quickly. Finally, the last blueprint is an auxiliary item, the Jagdflugel, which increases the Femto recovery rate of your arsenal, which used with the mentioned weapons can be quite effective. Now, there's a bunch of new attachments that you get from this fight, and I'll leave a list of the ones I've found in the video description so you can have a look at it after the video along with briefly what they do. Time will tell if the gear you get from this fight is going to be hit or miss, but that's not for me to decide yet. There's not enough testing and messing around with it yet. So, that was the video guys. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure to leave a like, a comment and subscribe, and catch us next time, hopefully for more Daemon X Machina content. Good night.